Hey, what's up, comic book collectors? It's Christopher, aka the Bronze Age Nerd, and in today's video, we're going to discuss a couple important topics. One of these pieces of news has been floating around the comic community all morning, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are familiar with. So we'll get to that news in a second, and that involves the labels and the QR code and all that fun stuff. But first, let's talk about something truly new. So that's right, the first change is actually something that is a shared exclusive with Big Time Collectibles. And this is the first ever, to my knowledge, and according to them, appearance of a actual exclusive print run that will be CGC graded and called out on the label. So this is the Batman 125 issue. That's kind of notable because it is the first appearance of Failsafe, a character that so far we know very little about, of course. But this is going to be limited to 300 copies. It's kind of interesting, though. It's a little bit deceptive because there is two different covers. One has Joker and one has Bane. But they claim this is going to be the first of many CGC exclusive variants with BTC, which Big Time Collectibles, of course. When we look at the actual label here, you can see up at the top that it's the Miko Suon foil variant. This one happens to be B cover, and it is numbered 1 of 300. That is significant. Also, it says it's the first appearance of Failsafe, Big Time Collectibles, and CGC exclusive Virgin foil cover. So it does denote that it is the CGC and Big Time Collectibles exclusive, and it also denotes that it's the numbered 1 of 300 for that particular allotment. Now, I actually think this is fairly significant. For one thing, this is not something that's brand new for collectibles, period, but this is something that's interesting for comic books. When it comes to CGC, this is the first time that we've had a print run that apparently is going to be completely shipped to CGC. They're going to mark 300 of them 9/8, encapsulate them, and destroy the others. And from what I understand, there will be a destruction video out there of the extra print run. So this brings to mind a couple concerns that I do have. One is, how sure are we that other copies didn't make it away from the distributor and go to, say, Big Time Collectibles, for example? We don't really have a lot of assurances about that. If it's numbered 1 of 300, that means the book itself is probably not numbered. I didn't see any indication of a numbering on the cover of that book. And if the book itself isn't numbered and we're just relying on the label, we really have to wonder if there's any other raw copies out there available. That might seem a little bit of a silly concern, but this is actually something that's just happened in the sports card community. There's been, a couple different copies of a 1 of 1 autograph, for example, that have made their way around and been discovered. And you have multiple owners come forward and say, well, we both own this collectible. It looks authentic. It feels authentic. It's a 1 of 1. What happened? But that isn't even my primary concern here. My primary concern here is, how lenient is CGC going to be on that 9/8? They know for a fact that they're going to be the only people with a 9/8 example of this book. I wonder if there's, let's say 40 of those 300 that they select are actually 9/6s or something. That'd be really an interesting integrity test for CGC, and one that's pretty hard to verify with CGC having looser standards. With this, it is interesting to see a print run that is numbered like this. I think in theory, this should add more security for customers to think that they are getting a legit book, because there has been some speculation about some of these exclusive print runs coming out from people that it seems like there's warehouse finds and other things that come to light, and all of a sudden there's more copies of that book floating around, which is really sketchy. So this, in theory, is adding those safeguards into place, but it does kind of highlight some of the transparency concerns that we have with CGC as a consumer base, period. Which brings me to the second announcement. This is the one that people are probably more familiar with. And this has to do with a video I made a little while ago, and the comic community in general responded to this, where CGC made a change to their labeling. They were no longer including many things, like, for example, if missing pages didn't affect story, there was going to be no notation of that on the label. And they were going to basically make graders notes free, but that's only if you had a paid membership. So what this did is it opened up some concerns about what exactly we're getting when we're buying our books. Like, let's say you don't have access to the internet and you're trying to buy a slab. If you don't have access to the grader notes, you don't have a paid membership, you have to pay for them. What exactly is going on there? If you don't think to look at the book's grader notes because it just seems fine, and hey, maybe it's a newer book, you don't really think there's any chance of that happening, and it suddenly has those issues, then were you swindled? Those are the kind of concerns that we had. Now, CGC has made a blockbuster announcement today that I think is absolutely in response to what the community said about their previous announcements about this. And let's take a look at that press release. So that's right. CGC has announced that QR codes are now going to appear on the labels. You can see that in the image here. They are on the back. This is much like what happens with CBCS labs already. So they have the QR label, which is something that I specifically mentioned in my last video, as well as a lot of other people. I'm not saying that I should have any kind of credit for this. But the interesting line here, the update will provide greater access and transparency to collectors. And I do agree with that. I have by and large seen the comics community, people like myself celebrating this move. And I do think that it does deserve some credit. However, I'm going to go ahead and play devil's advocate like I love to do on this channel and mention that there are still some issues with this. One issue with this is it still doesn't take away from the fact that CGC removed some information from the label that is now going to be harder to find, such as the example I gave before about, like say married cover and pages on the inside, or a missing page that doesn't affect story. So let's run through a couple real world scenarios where that could actually be an issue for you and help obfuscate the data that you need to make your purchase decision. One of those ways is that when you're at a convention, you don't always have the best cell signal. If you go to scan that QR code on CGC's website and you don't actually get the information that you're looking for, what good does it do you? The other thing that can happen is you could be at a comic store. I've been at a comic store actually that I go to fairly regularly, where if I'm in half of the store, I don't have any cell signal. So it's definitely possible that you could be at a comic store and not have cell signal. Or you could be meeting somebody, for like a face-to-face trade or whatever, and not have access to signal, and that kind of creates problems there. Now, more likely than not, I think most people are going to have access to signal. So that's probably not going to be a huge issue. But it is something that can happen. It can definitely happen. So the other interesting aspect about this to me is, and this is a concern for sure, is one of the users on my Discord server where we discuss things like this, news, it's a great place to go talk about this stuff, brought up that there's still kind of this, I guess, bug. I don't really know what it is. It's supposed to be, I think, a limiting feature to prevent sites and stuff that are scraping data from CGC's website from using too many entries into the Greater Notes box. This user discovered that at about 10 entries, and this is something it's been in place for a long time, CGC will essentially lock you out from looking up Graders Notes. I'll try to roll in a little screenshot of that right here so you can see what I'm talking about, the message that they received. I appreciate them showing the message that pops up and that it's still there. It's nice to know that some things never change, right? CGC can talk about this being a move towards transparency, and the community can embrace this and say bravo, all those sorts of things. And I think that is an important point. I am glad that they listened. I'm glad that they took that feedback that we all screamed from the top of the mountains. Apparently, we're now influential enough as prominent members of the community to talk about this stuff, not just Heritage or whoever they were getting that from before when they made that last announcement, to get a change made for made like this for the positive. I think that's great, but it still doesn't erase everything that happened here with CGC from the get-go and the issues that people have with CGC's transparency in general. Still, at the end of the day, it's hard not to be excited about a positive change. Hopefully, we can still get CGC to listen to us and make more positive changes in the future. And I think that on the surface, they had to cave in to what we were all asking for. And it doesn't buy me a ton of good faith, but it is an awesome move on their part, and I am happy to see them do it. All right, so that's been your CGC news update. As always, I want to hear what you guys think about this, so let me know in the comments down below, or you can head over to my Discord server or follow me on Instagram. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let's start some conversations. Up on the screen, you'll see some of my channel members. These are people that support me every month with a small membership to the channel. And also in return for that, they do get a chance to win some really cool stuff like free comic books, or they get some cool emoji that they can use in my live streams. So let's take a second to really thank those people because they help keep the channel running. And I want to remind you, as always, hey, 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 hey. Read comics every day.